Welcome back. Well, today I am joined by Heather Highland, who's here on behalf of the Orange County Vector Control. Well, Heather, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You know, it's an interesting subject matter. Of course, it's always the same for the most part, but, you know, we always want to be reminded of the things that we need to do to help these little, keep these little pests at bay. Because just the other day, I think I left my door open and I wanted to get some fresh air. And sure enough, that evening, I have a bunch of mosquitoes in my house and I didn't even notice they were coming in. Now, when we talked before, we talked about a new species, which were the teeny tiny little ones, and that they can hatch like months later, which is just kind of trippy. And, you know, you certainly don't want to have to deal with that. So as of right now, what are some of the new ones? Is it the same as the ones we were talking about before, or are there new kinds?
No, these are the same ones that we talked before about they're the daytime biting, ankle biters,
Okay.
black and white stripes, tiny, and they do tend to lay eggs in small containers. And people call them the ankle biters, but I kind of want to start calling them the backyard breeders because that's where we're seeing them breed the most.
Okay.
Is in backyards. They prefer indoors and outdoors, and that's the issue that we're having. Like you said, they'll sneak right into your house and have a field day. The issue also with these type of mosquitoes is they are aggressive biters. So when they do bite you, it could be 5 to 10 times that just one female is biting you. So you think that there's more around you.
Oh, but it's one nasty one. Oh my gosh. You know, can't they just be like bees and bite you and die?
I know. I wish that would be a little bit more. I think that would ease the pain of people's ankles.
Well, for sure, for sure. Now, what are some things? Well, first of all, before we get into all of the things that you can do about getting rid of some of the spots that the mosquitoes like, what can we do, or what are you guys doing in the community right now to help with these kinds of mosquitoes?
Yeah, so we do have technicians on site. If you ever see him, his name is Mike. He's your inspector, and we have collaborated and done our due diligence to talk to all the staff at Laguna Woods, city members, and the Golden Rain Foundation. They have always really been so supportive of bringing us in and saying, we have this issue, what do we do? So we do have traps set near Aliso Creek.
Okay.
So we're constantly checking Aliso Creek because I know that that's been an issue for residents. It's consistently checked. It's on a routine check. There's mosquito fish in part of the creek, and so that helps with more of a natural control, eating the larvae. The traps, though, have really shown us that there's not a lot of mosquito activity. So then that shows us it's probably more in the drains, which we do treat.
Okay.
And it probably has to do with 80s. So you're probably walking along the creek and then you come home and you have bites on you. So, I mean, that could be from the dusk and dawn biters, which are the culex mosquitoes. Or, you could be going back to your house and getting bit by an 80s mosquito. So not only do we have the ankle biters, we have the dusk and dawn biters. So the creek really isn't too much of a breeding habitat because we do routinely check it. Right. So it does tend to breed year after year. So we know that we have to check it, especially during the mosquito breeding season. Okay. And I know that we've talked to the maintenance staff, and they are going to, this month in August, going to clear out a lot of the cattails. And that way the water is going to be flowing more and not kind of leaving those areas where people feel like they think mosquitoes are breeding there.
Well, right, because that would be some sort of a standing water situation that may be for a period of time. And that's one thing that you guys definitely want to make sure everybody knows about is standing water. Now, in the past, you mentioned you talked to maintenance and you've got people on the ground in Aliso Creek. So it sounds like everything's going pretty well in terms of our public spaces. But in small yards or patios or even just out front, right, near your home, there can be standing water.
Oh, yeah. And, my parents live in Laguna Woods. And so I do walk along Aliso Creek. I'm always looking around. And what I do see in the neighborhood is a lot of saucers. I'm seeing a lot of potted plants, a lot of bird baths, a lot of containers. And that's a perfect breeding source for this type of invasive species.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we started seeing a lot of Aedes activity in August. And it goes all the way until October.
Mm-hmm.
So now our season is changing. We're starting to see them pop up in April all the way to October.
Oh boy.
And then from June to August is when, you know, when it heats up is kind of our larger mosquito activity season. But in 2015 is when we really started seeing the Aedes start to spread around Orange County. And we first spotted them in Mission Viejo.
Oh, where in Mission Viejo? Was it a park?
They were breeding in bromeliads.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of bromeliads that this person had bought and started selling. So that's where it started to spread.
Boy, see, who knew? I mean, you just don't know, like you said, because number one, they're small and then they don't show up for a little while later. So those are the Aedes ones. Now, do they carry West Nile virus?
So as of today, we have not seen any diseases from this particular mosquito, the ankle biter. They do have the potential to transmit things like Zika, chikungunya, dengue fever, yellow fever.
Okay.
So we don't want people traveling and coming back with those diseases, because now we have the host mosquito for those type of viruses that are sometimes can be deadly. So we are conducting surveillance around Orange County now for these type of mosquitoes. We check them for diseases to make sure we're not seeing any of them popping up around Orange County.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are traveling, I highly urge you to wear repellent wherever you're going, because if you come back and you start to have symptoms, flu-like symptoms, you might think nowadays it's COVID or the flu, but you know, it could be one of these types of viruses. So you always have to check for that. But we always collaborate with OC Health to make sure there aren't any human cases. And if there are, we, you know, feet to the ground, we're there checking it to make sure that they're not transmitting diseases.
Now, you guys have found West Nile virus in a couple of areas here in Orange County. Tell me about that.
So we recently just found some of our traps that had positive mosquitoes in Fullerton. So now we have 3 different West Nile virus positive locations in Fullerton.
Mm-hmm.
And as of today, we now have officially confirmed that we have positive mosquitoes in Anaheim for West Nile virus.
I see.
So we tend historically to see more West Nile virus mosquitoes, human cases, or even birds in North County. We don't really see a lot in South County, but you never know.
Right. You know, if someone was to contract West Nile virus from a bite, how would they feel? What happens?
So the symptoms for West Nile virus are tricky. You would have to get a blood test to see if you actually had it, because you're going to get flu-like symptoms. Sometimes you'll get a rash. And those are just the mild symptoms. But if you have severe symptoms, that's when I think doctors or people tend to notice more. So you're going to have brain swelling.
Oh, God.
Right? You can have paralysis. You can go into a coma. Those are the severe symptoms. And we have talked to 2 victims of West Nile virus that have had those severe symptoms, and it's very scary. One of them lives in Newport Beach, and he's on one of our videos. If you go on our website and just search West Nile virus, he is still having issues with his paralysis after 5 years.
Wow. No, it can be quite frightening. And sometimes, like you said, you don't even know what it is until weeks later. And then you finally figure it out. So yeah. And it also isn't necessarily something you're going to contract here. Like you said, you can contract it from somewhere else where there are mosquitoes and not even know it. So yeah, definitely. I'm a sunscreen, or not sunscreen. Yes, I use sunscreen, but I'm a bug spray fanatic. I swear I really do. And you know what, maybe next time when you come on, maybe we should talk about some of those bug sprays, because, you know, the warm weather, and this isn't going to go away, like you said, till maybe October. So we'll have you come back and we'll talk about some of those protections. I think would be ideal. Now, if someone does want more information about anything we've talked about, or maybe even some sunscreen or even that video, where should they go?
So you can head to our website, ocvector.org. And our overall message to residents is, you know, it's a shared responsibility. We conduct wide area control, but if residents can really do their due diligence and check their yards to make sure mosquitoes aren't breeding, it can be just a little form of water that is piling up in your yard.
Right.
But I think the main thing to look for is bird baths, buckets, saucers from plants, even pet dishes, and even indoors pet dishes and areas where they can breed, such as drains. But the new 80s species is known to survive indoors.
Yeah. 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 And I know we talked about that last time in soil and things like that. It's a good thing I don't have any live plants.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's the thing. Just get fake plants.
What's that?
Maybe just get fake plants and then
really just have fake plants and you don't have real soil. Well, in any case, thank you so much for the information. We appreciate it. We'll touch base again with you in about a month and we'll visit and talk about some bug sprays.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Heather. Thank you. And we'll be right back after this.